Hello all. Before we start, a quick but very important announcement. As you may have noticed, for quite some time, I've been using train footage as a backdrop. As it turns out, this may not have been copyright free as I believed. I will thus be using a different background for this video as I attempt to obtain permission or find a similar source. If this all goes very wrong, I may have to rework my older content with a different background. And this is why you save and back up everything. Regardless, fingers crossed. And Mrs. Owl is working hard on my animated avatar, which I will, hopefully in the future, be able to use full time. With that out of the way, let's get cracking. Hello all, this is the Owl. And, okay, let me explain myself. Yes, the title sounds rather low effort, and it could be, but I try to reserve my low effort stuff for shorts. A bit back, I made a video about the 5 darkest hidden details within Made in Abyss, and people did seem to enjoy it. But more than a few clicked on it expecting, well, this list. Now, simple lists, that's so 4 months ago. We can do better than that, can't we? So today, I'm going to be taking a look at the 5 darkest moments in Made in Abyss. But I'm also going to take a closer look at these moments, do a bit of analysis, and try to figure out what it is that made these so frigging disturbing and allowed them to make such a powerful impact in many cases, with less overt gore and squick than other so-called disturbing manga and anime. Now, this could easily have been a list of 10 because it's Made in Abyss, and so I will almost certainly do another video of this nature down the line. So, if your favorite OMG WTF moment isn't here, it'll likely show up in the next one. Yup, this bit freaked me out more than a bit when I first ran into it. Reg and Riko descend into the abyss, and they make it a fair ways down before they run into a rather nasty porcupine-esque creature with extremely venomous quills. Oh, and the ability to see through time. This manga man. Riko gets one right through her damn arm, which then swells, and in an attempt to negate the venom, Riko asks Reg to remove part of her arm. This is followed by several, oh my goodness me, I honestly struggle to read this even now, a series of panels where Reg clumsily smashes the bones in Riko's wrist and then begins hacking away, trying to remove the limb until they are saved by Nanachi. While, sure, it's somewhat mild compared to a lot of stuff that follows, there's something about this incredibly visceral scene that I always dread on rereads. It may be because it sort of comes out of nowhere. The story, up until now, was mostly pretty cutesy, with a bit of grit thrown in around the edges. And this scene likely marks the point in the manga where Tsukushi, under advice from his publishers, began to dial up the gore and nasty substantially and introduced Nanachi. While yes, the injury itself wasn't that crazy, you're essentially expecting the injury to just get quickly bandaged up and the duo to progress further, not a full-on botched battlefield amputation, especially with one character who is extremely young and another who is at least drawn very young. To make matters worse, not only does this result in a permanent injury to Riko, but it also turns out to have been completely pointless, as they are, of course, saved by Nanachi anyway. Woof. I'm rather surprised that Ma hasn't caught on more as a series mascot, or just a meme character, resembling something between a diseased hamster and one of those sheet ghosts you made as a kid, combined with a, gigantic ass. Ma is a perfect combination of the cute and the bizarre. However, the party's first meeting with this creature doesn't exactly go well, as Ma, along with some of the other villagers, end up badly injuring Mania, Riko's little pet and a keepsake of her friend Prushka. Put down the rabbit, Lenny.
You've already used that joke?
Yeah, but it's such a good one. This is a total accident, but causes Riko to have a royal freakout and carelessly announce that Mania was beyond valuable to her, not fully understanding how the value-based morality system of the village operates. What follows next is, oh man, both in the anime and the manga, just harrowing. The Shoggoth creature, referred to as the Balancing, rises up around Ma and proceeds to partially skin her, as well as removing all the stuffed animals she keeps inside her. This is beyond messed up on so many levels. First up, Riko didn't understand what her statement would cause to happen, and this is probably a phobia of some kind, one that I really do understand. It's one thing to inadvertently get yourself in the khaki, and quite another to cause the intense suffering of someone else. There's also the implication that Ma doesn't quite understand how the world works, leading me to wonder if she is actually a very young child that got turned into her hollow form by the village. The inability to speak and the collecting of stuffed animals just makes this oh so much worse. As I said, very young child and very young children have a tendency to be clumsy and occasionally rough with animals. I won't even tell you what happened to our classroom mice in grade 1. On the other hand, it's always frightening to have a pet, or worse, a small child, suddenly get cut off from you and manhandled by cuteness-aggressive strangers. It's really easy to feel like some harm could come to them, which does happen here in gruesome fashion, as Ma squeezes the little parrot Digimon so hard that it prolapses. Ugh, just nightmare fuel all round. This entire sequence still doesn't sit well with me, and it's easy to understand why. Fan favorite Prushka, adoptive daughter of mad scientist Bondrewd, suffered likely the worst fate of any character in the series. Okay, maybe it's a tie. See, Bondrewd's whole thing is human experimentation, which ended in the development of cartridges, briefcase-sized metallic containers filled with the still living remnants of eviscerated children, designed to absorb the effects of the curse for him. And at the tail end of the epic battle with Bondrewd, we see that Prushka has suffered this terrible fate too. It's not hard to understand why this is so messed up. The way that the story is told, particularly in the manga, makes Prushka a genuinely likable character who saved both Riko and Reg at different points in the story, and is torn between her love for her father, despite him being an unrepentant, unambiguous villain, and her budding friendship with the party. It's also implied that she became a cartridge voluntarily, and we get one absolutely hideous sequence showing us parts of her vivisection as she narrates, with Bondrewd removing her skin, limbs, and organs. It is a wretched scene, and was toned down substantially in the anime. Hell, even the manga only shows us isolated panels, but those are more than enough to get us thinking about what Prushka is going through, as her body is reduced to whatever is inside those cartridges. It's gross, nasty, and oh so messed up, and this will be a story beat that has a place in Darkest Anime or Manga Moments compilations until the end of time. Yep, that scene probably made in Abyss's most iconic moment, and probably one of the few bits that are substantially worse in the anime. Bondrewd's human experimentation at the time involved sending orphans down into the 6th layer and then pulling them back up, forcing them to undergo the mutative effects of the curse. However, his device that allows the curse to be shunted from one chamber to the other results in one passenger transforming into a blessed hollow. Yes, that's the term I've been using, and the other one to receive double the curse, turning them into a mess of organs, orifices, and limbs. This is the awful fate that befalls Nanachi and Mitty, two orphans, best friends, brought down into the abyss by Bondrewd. And yeah, there are lots of layers here. See, the process only works if the curse absorber has genuinely strong feelings for the other passenger, adding a powerful emotional component to this sequence, as we see Nanachi and Mitty's friendship build for a good while before this happens. Beyond this, the visuals, whether it's the chaotic page of panels showing Mitty's mutation or the explosive gore in the anime, this is just nightmarish, amped up further by the nonchalant interest of Bondrewd, and of course the fact that this turns Mitty immortal, resulting in Nanachi's quest to finally put her out of her misery. Bloody hell. So, what could be darker than that, you ask? Well, there were a few options here, but probably the most disturbing is, wait for it, oh yeah, manga fans watched anime viewers with a combination of glee and anticipation, knowing what was coming for them. When the Ganja expedition settled in Layer 6, the only potable water source turned out to be a parasitic organism, or a collection of parasitic organisms. I still have no idea exactly how it works, but it causes them all to fall ill and gradually melt and harden. Eccentric leader and Prophet Wazukyan, through a series of actions that I go over a bit more in my deep dive series and the previous video, caused a young girl to mutate into this abomination, as well as other things, and endlessly give birth to stillborn, blind nightmare babies that resembled her dead pet. Or I guess gummy bears in the anime. That was kind of dumb. As the Ganja folk slowly succumbed to the sickness, or to simple thirst, Wazukyan was able to both revive them and cure them by feeding them a soup. which we quickly come to realize is made from Irumyui's babies, taken from her whilst they are still alive, then butchered and rendered into soup. Holy crap, that was dark. Yeah, I would say that this reigns supreme in terms of most disturbing moments in Made in Abyss, and yet, in terms of visuals, it's extremely tame. This could probably have worked its way into a shonen. The horror of the moment is instead captured in the reactions of the characters. Vueko is basically struck dumb, the innocent, idealistic Belaf goes completely insane, and Wazukyan reveals himself to be another amoral Bondrude-esque villain, except that here he's almost sympathetic. As to him, this was the only path open to saving the village, basically going full Donner Party to survive. But there's also a lot of other stuff around the margins, involving Irumyui's distress and what eventually happens to her, but I've already covered this extensively in other videos, so I will leave that part there. However, what makes this, in my opinion, the darkest moment in the manga is probably the build-up. The Iruburu arc is a masterclass in storytelling, and it adopts probably my single favorite storytelling element in the form of what I call the Forbidden Secret beat. The what, you ask? Let me explain. So, this device involves you essentially setting up a mystery, but warning the characters and thus the reader that this isn't a mystery they want to solve, because the answer is something truly awful. Of course, humans being humans, this naturally makes them all the more curious, so they finally seek out and find the answer, and yup, it's usually bloody awful. Probably the most classic example of this plot device I can think of is the famous story of Bluebeard. No, I said Bluebeard, where a woman marries a wealthy nobleman who takes her back to live with him in his castle. He's frequently away on business, but gives her complete free rein to explore the castle and spend his riches, with only one caveat. There is a single door in the castle that she must never open. Of course, she tries to forget about it, but it preys on her. Slowly but surely, her curiosity builds, and she spends more and more time near the door. She looks under it, listens at it, and even tries peeking through the keyhole. But she can't see anything or detect anything other than a faintly unpleasant odor. Finally, she is overwhelmed by curiosity, says sod it, gets the key, and opens the door. Inside the room, she finds all the heads of her husband's former wives, turns to run, and sees him standing at the door, wielding an axe. Yeah, this story gave me actual nightmares as a kid, and you see this plot device a fair amount in modern media, likely most notably in The Shining, with the mystery of room 237, 217 in the novel, which ended up containing a nasty surprise for protagonist Danny Torrance. I've always wondered if this story is originally a biblical analogue, as it has a lot of similarities to the tale of Eve and the Tree of Knowledge. And wait, what am I on about? Regardless, as we get to know the village and its inhabitants better, we are warned that its origins are a very dark secret. Our anticipation is built up, and so when the terrible reveal arrives, it works like gangbusters. Yeah, it's a very, very good manga. So there we have it, folks. The 5 most disturbing Made in Abyss moments, at least for now, and how the story is able to fully capture the horror of these moments without resorting to that much overt gore or squick. By leaving so much up to the viewer's imagination, It allows us to visualize the nightmares happening just off panel or off screen, which is sadly a lost art when it comes to horror. Oh, and before we call it a day, just remember, both the prophetic Wazukyan and the child of the abyss Vaputa, who are both implied to have precognitive abilities, definitively warn us that the darkest stuff in the story is yet to come. Oh boy. Well, that's me for the day. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, why not stick around? There's plenty more like this and tons more coming down the pipe. September and October are going to be bangers. If you want to help myself or Mrs. Owl out and help me to afford some more coffee for all these early mornings, you could always head over to our Patreon and put a big fat smile on our faces. If you want to chit chat, shoot the shit, give me feedback or whatever, you can always come over to our Discord. It's been really fun. Otherwise, cheers my friends, take care, and I'll see you next time. This is the Owl, signing off.